Let's say that one more time. God is good. Say it one more time. God is good.
Well, God bless you. Listen, this is Pastor Ray. I am so honored and delighted to have you to turn this way. We're getting ready to carry you into a message that I preached not very long ago. I think it will bless you, your household, and your family. God moves in such mysterious ways. His wonders are to perform. I want to carry you and let you listen to this message. We'll be back a little later. Let's go into church. Book of Daniel's chapter 6, Daniel chapter 6. I want to read verse 16 and verse 23 and preach before it and after it, but those are the verses I want to hang our hats on. Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. The king spake and said unto Daniel, Thou God whom thou serve continually, he will deliver thee. Verse 23, then was the king exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. I want to talk a little while about I survived it. I survived it. Just look at somebody around, just point up and say, honey, you're looking at a survivor. All of us in here, if we're honest with ourselves, we have survived from something. Maybe it was a heart attack. Maybe it was a stroke. Maybe it was cancer. Maybe it was a gunshot. Maybe it was a divorce. Maybe it was unemployment. Maybe an automobile accident. Maybe from just foolishness. But we survive. And you have to thank God for being a survivor. I wanted to lift this passage again because I think it will help somebody make it to another day. One of the great characters in the Bible is that of Daniel. Daniel, his name means something. The E-L on any Old Testament word has reference to God. D-A-N means judge. So the name Daniel means God will judge. And whenever you stand before God, you cannot bring false evidence because he got the book on you. Daniel now is a little over 90 years of age. You've been faithful to God. And what I discovered during my years of preaching, pastoring, and living for the Lord, that God will stand with the person that stand with his son. That when you honor the Son of God, God will honor you. It may not look like it in the outset. It may look like you're losing. But can I tell you, with God, you're always a winner. It looked like sometimes that you're losing the battle. But God will never forsake you. He will never let you down. I like it because he work overtime. He do his best work at night. Daniel had several friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, whose names were changed to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They decided after they had been captured from Babylon, from Jerusalem to Babylon, that they would still honor God. Regardless of their name being changed, they said, we're going to serve a true and a living God. Now, the only one on the scene is Daniel. Daniel, because of his closeness with God, he received promotions. And how many know that promotions get you in trouble? That is, some people can't handle your promotions because misery loves company. I used to think that people could and would rejoice with your success, but it seemed to do them harm when they congratulate you. It is amazing how many people will show up if you get set out of your house over against the ones that will show up if God bless you with a new house. If he bless you with a new house, you can't get them to even come to the woman. If you get set out, they all around. They email and texting folks. So I knew they wasn't going to keep it in the first place. Because people like to rejoice with your failure, but they cannot rejoice with your success. There's a thing called jealousness that has a way of creeping into the hearts of people. Jealousness have been around a long time. The first person I know that was jealous was that of Satan. The Bible say in Isaiah chapter 14 that Satan, Lucifer, they saw how God could speak and stuff would happen. He saw how God could just make a statement and people would bow down and worship him. So he decided that he was going to make his throne above the throne of God. That's when he got in trouble. That's when God demoted him and brought him to the ground because he was jealous of God. I think that when people have jealousness in their heart, they're showing an indication that I just may be some kin to Satan. You remember when Cain and Abel went to the Lord and presented a gift to the Lord. Abel brought the fatling. He brought the best of the flock and presented it to the Lord. That's in Genesis chapter 4. And God had respect for Abel and for his offering. Cain came and brought the nubblings from the ground, and he presented his corn to the Lord, and the Lord rejected Cain and his offering. And when God rejected Cain, he got mad at Abel because God had elevated Abel and Cain couldn't handle it. So the Bible says he rose up and slew his brother. He cut him up into little pieces and put him on the altar. And God came to see about him. Said, what's going on, Cain? He said, listen. He said, am I my brother's keeper? He said, well, I heard his blood crying from the ground. God don't take it lightly when you're so jealous of people until it bring a rage in your heart. Because jealous folk are dangerous. Can I give you one more before I move to the text? That was a man, young man, in Luke chapter 15. We call him the prodigal son. He left home, took his livings, and went and joined himself to the citizens of that country. He spent his living on riotous living, and when he had spent all, he came back home and said, my father got more than bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger. I'm going to rise and go to my father. Said the father, I've sinned against heaven and before thee. And when he came back home, the elder brother was in the field working. And he came back, he heard music and dance, and he asked some of the servants, what's going on? He said, your brother has come home. Instead of him rejoicing that the brother came out of darkness into the marvelous light, the Bible says he was angry. And he got upset because his father had welcomed the son back home. Are y'all here? Jealousness can be a dangerous welcome. It make you lose delight. You can't enjoy what somebody do for others. You can't enjoy the progress of others. You can't stand their position. You can't stand their prosperity. You can't stand their possessions. In other words, you cannot rejoice with what God have blessed others to have. But can I tell you, y'all getting quiet on me already here. Can I tell you what God have for you is for you? That what God have blessed you with, thank God for it. Because if God wanted you to have that, God would have given that to you. And if God didn't give it to you, it's best you don't have it. When Daniel was promoted, a new king, King Darius, was on the scene, and he was an organizer. He organized his prevent. He had 120 presidents. He cut them up into 3 groups. He selected 3 men to put over the groups, which means each group had a leader, a president. Daniel was one of the 3. But then the Bible said the king preferred Daniel over all of them. And when they saw that Daniel had received a promotion, they became jealous of Daniel. And when they became jealous of Daniel, they sought out to find fault with Daniel. People love to find faults in other folk. You can run into people, they don't talk 5 minutes before they start putting but in their conversation. She sung good, but. Choir did all right, but talk to me, somebody. How you like church is okay, it's too big. Always some buts in everything jealous people come up with. Have you ever been around jealous folk? And they're everywhere. They're on your job. They're in the school. They're in the sports world. A lady was married to a man, and she was insanely jealous. It was during the time they had beepers. Y'all remember beepers? And the battery went down on the beeper. And when the battery would go down, it would keep beeping. And a little writing would come up in the box of the beeper saying, low sale. phone, the beeper kept beeping. She looked at that beeper and hauled off and slapped her husband. Said, I want to know who is this bee named Losale that's keep beeping you. Jealous people are dangerous. They make life miserable. They make life uncomfortable. And when they promoted Daniel, the others started picking holes in his life to see if they could find fault with Daniel. So they decided to do several things. They decided, first of all, to come up with a demonic plot. You see, if people can't find a fault, they create a fault. And because people love to hear the fault of others, they will jump on the bandwagon. Without any evidence whatsoever, people just love to hear dirt on other folk. But you got to be careful when you throw dirt, because it has a way of coming back. You see, you don't throw a stone and you living in a glass house. They decided to assault his reputation, because reputation will mess up a lot of people. Whole lot of folk now can't get nothing because somebody messed up your reputation. They just put out stuff just for the devil and see if it's going to stick and how long it's going to stick to try to take you down. I've had so many pastors that come to me and say, Pastor, how do you handle situations like that? I said, well, you have to look at it different from the way they present it. Because if you look at it the way they present it for you and because of you, you walk around with a hung down head. I said, but in my case, it became free promotion. Y'all don't like that. Because what they meant it for evil, God meant it for good. You know, people be trying to cut you down, and God will take what they say and reverse it on you and make it turn out for your good. They decided to attack his, help me say, reputation. He had been a man of prayer. He had been a follower of God. But they decided that they would assault his reputation by attacking his religion. I wonder if somebody attack your religion, what will they come up with? If you have been summoned to court and accused of being a Christian, would you have enough evidence to prove you're saved? Oh, y'all ain't saying nothing in this house. They tried to attack his reputation, but what they didn't know is that Daniel had something that he didn't get in a closet. Daniel had the kind of salvation, kind of deliverance that come hell or high water, he was going to stand for the Lord. He had worked under the king of Nebuchadnezzar, and he had interpreted his dream for him. Then when King Belshazzar got in trouble, and grandmama said, there's a preacher in town by the name of Daniel. Bring him over, he'll tell you what the dream means. Daniel walked in, so I can tell you, O king, what the dream you dreamed about. He said, what is it? He said, the handwriting on the wall, number one, is spelled Mene Mene Tekel Euphrates. King said, what that mean? you have been weighed in the balance and found wanting. Talk to me, somebody. And now these kings are gone, and now King Daniel is there. Because of Daniel's faithfulness, he moved up a little higher. Can I tell you, it pays to be faithful. It pays to stand with God. It pays to trust in God. It pays to depend upon God. They had a problem because the Bible says that Daniel had an excellent spirit. Now, can I tell you, that's not easy? Because when you're going through stuff, it's hard to have an excellent spirit. When you know folk are out to get you, it's hard to have an excellent spirit. When don't nobody believe you, don't nobody trust in you, it's hard to have an excellent spirit. But if you got the right person on the inside, come hell or high water, you can say like Job, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. Upon all the days of my appointed time, I'll wait until my change come. And it just help anyway when you know who you are and know whose you are. I said yesterday at a homegoing service, and I'll repeat it again, the difference between saved people and unsaved people is that saved folk know what to look for. A sinner will look out of the window and see mud. But a saint will look out of the same window and see the sun. A sinner will look at a rose bush and see thorns. A saint will look at the same rose bush and see roses. Sinner will look at water in a glass and see if half empty. But a saint will look at the same glass, says half full. When David got ready to fight Goliath, the enemies looked and said, the giant is too big for David to fight. But when David looked at the giant, he said, the giant is too big for me to miss. I wish I had some help in there. We look at it different. Sinner have to always look back at yesterday, last week, last month, last year. But a saint look forward. It does not yet appear what we shall be, but when he shall appear, we shall be like him. I press toward the mark of the prize of the high call, forgetting those things which are behind me. Am I here by myself? That when you are saved, you look different. So Daniel, in spite of all the stuff he had encountered, he had an excellent spirit. Can I tell you, it worked everywhere. Even when you bury your loved ones, if you can keep the right spirit, you can make it through any situation. Instead of saying, my mama is gone, my mama is gone, my mama is gone. Look back at the fact God gave her to me. Hadn't been for mama, I wouldn't be here now. And I got to admit, I can't keep her always. I'd love for her to be here, but thank God for what she have already done. I've said this before, that sometimes we pray the wrong prayer. We thank God for what he did, but every now and then you ought to thank him for what he didn't do. Y'all don't like me. Dr. D.E. King used to pastor the Metropolitan Church in Chicago, Illinois. He said he went to his grandmama one day after he got grown, so he wouldn't dare do it while he was young. He said, Grandmama, I want to ask you something. Why did you beat me so bad when I was young coming up? You just beat me every time I do anything. You beat me. I drop a plate, you beat me. I stumble, you beat me. I drop my water, you beat me. Why you beat me so much? Says, Grandmama said, you ought to thank me for what I didn't do. He said, I should have killed you. Like so, we should thank God for what he didn't do. He said, I thank him for what he did. But how many know we deserve to be dead? Because the wages of sin is death. But the gift of God is eternal life. Do have a witness. And when you start being grateful to God for what he didn't do, man, you just think about it. The people that you grew up with, your classmates, your neighbors, gone. Already caught the steady march of the chariot wheels. And here you are. Ain't been as good as they was. And you getting promotions on your job. Some of you live to retire and just wait on Uncle Sam. I wish I had some help in this house. And they already gone, but you still here. So you ought to every now and then thank him for what he didn't do. They tried to take Daniel out, but they didn't know Daniel had something going for himself. It was a demonic plot, but then there's what you call a disciple's prayer. Because instead of Daniel yielding to the criticism, he did what he had been doing. Listen at verse 10. When Daniel, they had signed to the decree, they went to the king and said, King, we want to help you out because it could be some people in your kingdom that's trying to dethrone you. And so, King, we want to recommend that they refine.
Well, God bless you. Listen, we're out of time, but you see we're certainly not out of message. I hope you've been blessed while listening to just a portion of this message. I think the message will be a blessing to your household. Just order this message, 1-800-375-4007, or you can write to the God is Good Ministry, 2237 South Parkway East, Memphis, Tennessee, zip 38114, or go to God is Good Ministry. Love for you to check us out. Be blessed.